Hey students, this week we're talking about abstract photography, and in this short video lesson I want to first of all help you understand what is abstract, what does it mean to take abstract images, and what are some of the techniques for creating these types of images. Alright, so let's get started. Abstract images, I just want to show you a bunch of different examples of abstract images. When we think of abstract images, we usually think of images that don't really convey a realistic depiction of the world. Instead, we see images that really consist of different forms and colors and lines that make an interesting composition, except we don't actually know what the object or subject of the picture is. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. In this case, we have a very abstract image. We're not even sure what we see there. And the one on the right, we're a little bit more sure of what the subject matter is, but it's still very abstract because of the blurring. So let's get a definition of abstract. Abstract is a visual art form that does not convey realistic depictions of the world. Okay, so it's non-realistic. And abstract images tend to focus on form, color, and line to create a composition that bears little or no resemblance to the objects being photographed. So again, the focus is on form, different colors, different lines, but we don't necessarily know what's being photographed. An abstraction represents a departure from reality. The departure from realistic representation can be partial or complete. So what do I mean by that? There's kind of a continuum of abstraction. On the left we see here partial abstraction. We know that it's a coffee cup being viewed from above, that it's on a red plate, and that there's lined background behind it. So we still recognize the object or subject being photographed. So the abstraction is only partial. We still are, it is an abstract image because we're focusing more on form and line and color and less on the object itself. So it's abstract, but it's only partial. On the right, we see more of a complete abstraction. We're not even exactly sure what we're looking at. Now you might recognize that that's an onion, part of an onion looked at really close up, but you might not be sure of what it is exactly. So it's a more complete abstraction because we do not recognize the realistic object that was photographed here. Okay, so as earlier I mentioned, there are three key elements to abstract photography. There's form, color, and line. These are the things we focus on as elements in a good abstract photograph. Form. Form is the shape of the elements in the image. So this really, form is the foundation of an abstract image. So before you run off taking abstract or images, photographs of different objects, really start to train your eye to look at the form of whatever you are photographing. This is the most important part or element of a good abstract image. Is there an interesting shape that you just look at and go, wow, that's really interesting. That makes an interesting composition. So here we have an example of some clay pots set next to each other, and the light falling on them just focuses on those forms, the curved shapes of the edge of the pots, and it makes an interesting abstract photograph because of the form or shape that we see. We have another form or shape with the hole in the piece of wood, the finger coming through it, just makes a very interesting shape. This is the arch in St. Louis, taken from right directly below looking up. We're not exactly sure what it is because it's more abstract, but it makes a very interesting shape with the contrasted with the sky in the background. So form is the most important element of an abstract picture. So make sure your pictures have an interesting, dynamic, and eye-catching form or shape. Next we focus on color. Color is a very emotional topic. Different colors evoke different emotions, and we want to focus on the contrast and relationship of different colors in an image. Again, color evokes emotion. So here we have very saturated color. Saturated means a very rich color. And so the green here is just very intense, very saturated. And that makes an interesting abstract photograph. We probably can guess that it's a leaf, but we're not exactly sure what the image is, what the subject matter is. Here we have a good contrast in color. The orange and the blue are contrasting colors, and set next to each other like this, they make a very interesting abstract image. This is actually from geothermal pools in Yellowstone National Park, but you wouldn't necessarily know that. It could be just about anything, you know, a close-up of a different kind of element. We're not exactly sure, but it makes a great abstract. The third key element of abstract photography is line. We learned a little bit about line before, and we learned that it directs the viewer's eye through the image. So line then can create a very dynamic image by emphasizing movement. It can be straight lines, they can be curved lines. Here we have, again, we're not exactly sure what it is, but at closer inspection, these are actually shopping carts all lined up next to each other. But really what we really focus on is the dynamic lines that go diagonally through the image, creating an abstract picture. Here we have more curved lines rather than straight lines, and they are kind of crisscrossing and moving throughout the picture, creating a very interesting dynamic abstract image. Again, we're not so much focused on the fact that this is a picture of ropes, but really that it's just an abstract collection of lines and makes an interesting composition. So those are the three key elements. Now, techniques. How do we create these different types of abstract images? There are different techniques. I'm not going to go over them here because there's quite a few. I just want to give you examples. Then I'm going to give you an article online that I want you to read and study to learn how to create these different types or techniques. First of all, selective focus. You focus right in on just one part of the picture, the element of the subject, and you leave the rest blurry. That tends to create a more abstract image, as we see here. Light and shadows. You can have one part of the picture very dark in shadow, one part very light. Now all of a sudden the sand dune looks less like a sand dune, it's more just an abstract shape or form, which is very powerful. Lines and textures. We can have different lines flowing through the picture. And again, you can learn a bit more about the techniques by reading the article that I'll show you in a moment. Blur. Blur can be used very effectively to create an abstract image. Here we have actually a picture of a crowd, but we're not actually sure what it is. The camera was moved laterally from left to right when this picture was taken. As it was taken, the camera was quickly moved, and that created a blur effect, which gives you an abstract image. Another type of blur is a zooming in blur, where you have a zoom lens on your camera, and as you take the picture, you zoom in on the subject matter. It creates this really cool line effect where all the lines are converging in the center of the image. Very interesting, and there's ways to do that if you have a zoom lens on your camera. And finally, a partial object, where you just focus in or move in very closely on an object or subject matter, and just getting part of that image in the picture creates more abstract. So here we have a tire, almost bald tire, but because we focused in very closely on just some of the lines and textures, we have a very interesting, more abstract image. Okay. Now this article that I'm talking about is found here. I'm going to click on it real quick. And let's see if that's going to open up in a browser for me. Let's bring it up here. When you get into this article, you'll see here it's actually just part of his overall series on abstract photography, but I want you to look at part 2, which he talks about these different techniques and how to take these different types of photographs. Okay, so I'm not going to go over it. I want you to read it and study it and learn how to create those images yourself. However, the very last technique that he talks about in that article talks about using Photoshop filters to create abstract images. I don't want you to use that technique in this assignment. I want all of your abstract techniques to be created in the camera, okay, not in software that you use to alter the image. So we're focusing on abstract images that are made or created with the camera alone. So no Photoshop filters. All right, so I'll have a link to that article in Moodle, so you'll be able to get to it more easily here. All right, now your assignment. I want you to study those techniques from Ron Bigelow's article I just showed you, and the link is in Moodle. I want you to study those techniques and learn how to create abstract images with your camera. Then I want you to go out and create at least 3 collections of abstract images. When I say collection, I mean each collection is a series of photographs that focuses on one subject or object. And I want you to do this because I want you to learn or force yourself to look at one object in different ways. Focus on the color, contrast, or focus on form, focus on lines. Use one of the different techniques in Ron Bigelow's article to take different pictures of one subject. Okay, so you're going to have 3 collections. Each collection focuses on one subject or object. Then within each collection, I want you to have at least 3 strong abstract images. You're probably going to take a lot more than 3, but keep taking them until you get 3 strong abstract images. And those different images should focus on maybe the different 3 key elements, form, color, or line, or could be by using different techniques from the article within each collection. And that'll give you 3 strong, different abstract images within each collection. Okay, so that means that when you're done, you're turning in a total of 9 images, at least. You're going to take more than that, but that's the number you're going to turn in. Okay, so that's your assignment for this week. We're all about abstract images. It's a very fascinating, interesting subject, photography. I hope you have fun with it. I look forward to seeing your images.